Breaking news today, Ukraine has delivered a significant blow to Russian air power, destroying dozens of warplanes in a carefully coordinated operation across multiple air bases. Dubbed the Spider's Web attack, this operation showcases Kyiv's advancing capabilities, countering claims of their inferiority. Could this mark a dangerous escalation, potentially leading to nuclear confrontation?
Hello, and welcome to That News Show, where we discuss the latest facts, fakes, and hypocrisy as reported by the legacy media. Let's roll the tape.
BBC News reports that Ukrainian drones have struck air bases across Russia, destroying dozens of warplanes. There may be more to this story than meets the eye. Good evening. While mainstream media may portray these attacks as a significant Ukrainian victory, it's crucial to consider the broader implications. Dubbed Operation Spider's Web, this development edges us closer to the brink of nuclear confrontation. As the Trump administration strives for peace in Istanbul, the sudden appearance of Ukrainian drones deep inside Russia, which resulted in the destruction of $7 billion worth of military equipment, raises questions. This sequence of events seems far from coincidental. Recall the Biden-Harris administration's continued financial support for this conflict without a clear exit strategy. We are now witnessing the dangerous escalation that ensues. The critical issue here isn't just Ukrainian ingenuity. It's about who benefits from prolonging this war, especially as American families face challenges back home. Let's see what unfolds.
Circle. At a petrol station north of Irkutsk, a glimpse of the operation in progress. With smoke already rising behind, a drone emerges from the truck and heads off to join the attack. Moments later, another, and gunfire as police officers try to bring it down. Ukraine claims to have done a staggering $7 billion worth of damage and knocked out a third of the planes Russia uses to deliver cruise missiles.
Ми розуміємо, з ким маємо справу.
We know exactly whom we are dealing with. We will defend ourselves by every means available.
The scale and sophistication of the Ukrainian drone offensive signify a new phase in the conflict and underscore how extensively the war has expanded beyond its initial boundaries. Witnessing over 100 drones striking deep into Russian territory and impacting more than 40 strategic bombers clearly indicates escalating risks. The reach of these strikes to eastern Siberia, thousands of kilometers from the front lines, should serve as a wake-up call for policymakers in Washington who still perceive this conflict as a manageable proxy war. While some may applaud Ukraine's tactical success, we must recognize that each action edges us closer to a direct confrontation between nuclear powers. The Russian military's response and their bloggers' calls for severe retaliation, coupled with the Kremlin's nuclear threats, a recurring theme in this conflict, underscore the grave dangers involved. The American electorate did not endorse risking nuclear conflict over regions like Donbass or Crimea. Yet, successive administrations have deepened our involvement, supplying Ukraine with advanced weaponry and supporting actions that risk spiraling out of control. The current administration's policies, marked by an emphasis on global intervention without a clear diplomatic strategy, have exacerbated the situation. Although attempts were made during President Trump's tenure to broker peace, such as the Istanbul talks, today's administration faces challenges from actions it neither authorized nor can fully control. It is crucial to consider what vital American interests are served by supporting these drone strikes. Are we truly safer when nuclear bombers are aflame on Russian runways, or are we merely inviting a broader conflict that could engulf all of Europe and beyond? For those who prioritize national sovereignty and a strong, independent America, the answer is evident. This is not our war. Our focus should be on defending our borders, revitalizing our military, and prioritizing American interests, rather than being drawn into a prolonged conflict driven by globalists and establishment politicians from both parties. As the situation evolves, the risks of miscalculation and unintended escalation grow. The American people deserve leaders who will steer us clear of foreign entanglements and away from the brink of war.
Not for a single moment did we want this war. We offered the Russians a ceasefire.
Earlier, a different kind of wreckage, this the Ukrainian city of Zaporizhia, after the country suffered another major drone and missile attack. Elsewhere, 12 Ukrainian soldiers were killed at a training base, the head of Ukraine's land forces tendering his resignation.
As we observe the aftermath of the coordinated Ukrainian drone strikes deep into Russian territory, we're witnessing a dangerous escalation in a conflict that continues to spiral out of control. Overnight, Ukrainian forces initiated a significant drone campaign targeting the Kursk and Voronezh regions, with Russian officials reporting that they intercepted 162 drones. This operation followed a more ambitious one yesterday that targeted multiple Russian air bases housing strategic bombers. The damage includes fires in residential buildings, disrupted traffic on the M4 expressway, and power lines severed by falling debris. Fortunately, no injuries were reported in these latest attacks, but the pattern is clear. Ukraine is increasingly testing its limits, risking a severe Russian retaliation. The situation is further complicated by the transition from the Biden-Harris administration to the Trump administration. Over the past 4 years, the Democrats significantly armed Ukraine without a clear diplomatic strategy, emboldening Kyiv to extend its military reach deep into Russian territory. This approach lacked consideration for the long-term implications or American interests. President Trump has been actively trying to navigate this complex situation, seeking peace through the Istanbul talks. The ongoing military actions, such as Ukraine's drone swarms targeting strategic assets, complicate these efforts. Also, the recent resignation of Ukraine's ground forces commander following a deadly Russian missile strike underscores the deadly consequences of this escalating conflict. It's clear that America's involvement in determining the fate of the Donbas region does not align with our vital national interests. The previous administration's actions have risked drawing NATO into direct conflict with a nuclear-armed Russia, a scenario that could lead to severe miscalculations. What's frustrating is the persistence of certain Washington figures, both Democrats and some Republicans, who seem intent on prolonging this conflict. They continue to support Ukraine without addressing the domestic challenges Americans face, such as inflation and economic hardship, exacerbated by this global instability. President Trump recognizes that America cannot act as the world's policeman. Our priority should be to rebuild our nation, secure our borders, and pursue peace through strength, not endless foreign entanglements that drain our resources and compromise our security. While the Ukrainian drone campaign may captivate the media and appease war hawks, it pushes us closer to a confrontation that benefits only the military-industrial complex and globalist elites who profit from ongoing conflict.
What chance then for another round of peace talks set to take place in Istanbul? Russian and Ukrainian delegations are expected to be there, but after 24 hours of mayhem, the omens for a breakthrough do not seem good.
The Istanbul talks are now overshadowed by the aftermath of Operation Spider's Web, which saw Ukrainian forces orchestrate a highly coordinated drone assault on multiple Russian airbases. Over 40 strategic bombers were destroyed or damaged, with fires reported as far as Irkutsk and Murmansk. The scale of this operation is new. Ukrainian officials are touting this as a major blow to Russia's long-range strike capabilities. Such actions only serve to deepen the cycle of escalation. Russian officials are signaling a hardline response, with state media amplifying calls for severe retaliation. This dangerous brinkmanship is exactly what responsible leaders should be avoiding. Yet, as delegations gather in Istanbul, the prospects for meaningful dialogue seem remote. Moscow's refusal to consider a truce or return abducted children, coupled with Kiev's insistence on strengthening its bargaining position through military means, leaves little room for compromise. The American people should question what vital interests are being served by continued involvement in this conflict. Despite the enormous cost, the previous administration pushed the United States deeper into this proxy war, ignoring the risks of direct confrontation with a nuclear power. Now, the current administration seeks to bring parties to the table, but the lack of transparency from Kyiv, evident in their decision to launch this operation without prior White House knowledge, raises serious questions about the wisdom of unconditional support for Ukraine. Meanwhile, the cost of these drone attacks, a fraction of the value of the Russian bombers destroyed, is celebrated in Western media as a triumph of ingenuity. But the real price may be further escalation and instability across the region. As Russia moves to reinforce its remaining bomber fleet and steps up missile and drone attacks on Ukrainian cities, the risk of miscalculation grows. It is time for policymakers in Washington to recognize that America's role should not be to police the world or bankroll endless foreign conflicts at the expense of our own security and prosperity. The focus must return to defending our borders, rebuilding our economy, and prioritizing the needs of American citizens. The events unfolding in Istanbul are a stark reminder that peace will not be achieved through escalation or by following the failed strategies of the past. Instead, it demands a clear-eyed reassessment of our national interests and a renewed commitment to non-intervention, principles that the current White House is finally beginning to restore after years of reckless globalist adventurism.
Across Russia. What we know is that the Olena air base near Murmansk in the northeast of Russia, near Finland, was hit. There are also attacks to the southwest and northeast of Moscow. And far to the east, all the way over here, over 4,000 kilometers from the front line, deep in Siberia, where it was confirmed that this remote airbase in Belena was hit. And it's here that this incredible footage was captured, showing the destruction of planes on the tarmac.
The devastation at Russian air bases marks a significant escalation in the conflict, raising concerns for every American. Ukrainian drone strikes deep into Russian territory are not merely tactical victories celebrated by the media. They are dangerous provocations that edge us closer to a catastrophic confrontation. The financial aspect of this conflict is equally troubling. As Ukraine uses cost-effective drones to destroy billions of dollars worth of Russian military hardware, American taxpayers bear the cost of this proxy war. The previous administration invested heavily in Ukraine without enough oversight, draining our strategic reserves and exacerbating an inflation crisis that impacts everyday Americans. Kuwait. Economic consequences. For the market has reacted predictably to these tensions, with oil prices surging nearly 3% overnight due to potential disruptions in Russian energy exports. This surge affects Americans directly, increasing costs at the gas pump and for home heating. Meanwhile, defense contractor stocks have risen sharply, benefiting from the continued push by some politicians for greater involvement in foreign conflicts. President Trump inherited a challenging situation from an administration keen on foreign entanglements, often at the expense of domestic priorities. The Biden-Harris administration appeared to prioritize Ukrainian interests over American ones, sending extensive funds overseas while domestic infrastructure suffered and inflation-strained family budgets. Ostrich-to-reach reality saw Ukraine's ability to strike deep within Russia signals a significant shift, targeting assets critical to Russia's defense strategy. The Kremlin's heightened nuclear rhetoric reflects their serious concerns about these perceived existential threats. Russian military bloggers are already calling for severe retaliatory measures, which could escalate to attacks on Ukrainian cities or even NATO assets. The resignation of Ukraine's ground forces commander after a severe Russian missile attack underscores the deadly nature of this escalating conflict. Each side seems compelled to respond more forcefully, pushing us toward a broader conflict that could involve Europe and potentially NATO. It's Kleskoproks. President Trump's administration is prudently reassessing our role in this conflict. Unlike his predecessor, Trump prioritizes America's vital interests, recognizing the risks of a nuclear confrontation over Eastern European territorial disputes. The Istanbul peace talks offer a chance to de-escalate, but Ukraine's recent unilateral drone strike conducted without informing Washington jeopardizes the trust essential for effective diplomacy. This exemplifies the flaws in the previous administration's approach, which offered unconditional support without demanding accountability or strategic alignment. The long-standing globalist agenda in Washington, embraced by the Biden-Harris administration, has promoted policies that weaken America and entangle us in foreign conflicts. This vision of America as the world's policeman has depleted our resources, divided our nation, and emboldened adversaries. As demonstrated by these drone strikes, the conflict is spiraling out of control. The sophisticated planning behind these operations, involving drones smuggled into Russia and launched across multiple time zones, indicates Ukraine's resolve to escalate despite the risks. Each destroyed Russian bomber on distant Siberian runways increases the risk of a catastrophic miscalculation.
We're used to stories of ingenuity and determination. The sinking of the Moskva warship in 2022, the truck-borne attack on the Kerch Bridge the same year, and just a month ago, using missiles mounted on maritime drones to shoot down.
We are currently witnessing a significant escalation in the Ukraine conflict, marked by Ukraine's extensive drone offensive against Russian strategic bomber bases. Dubbed Spider's Web by Ukrainian officials, this operation targeted multiple Russian airbases simultaneously, damaging or destroying over 40 aircraft, including strategic bombers used to launch cruise missiles. These drones, ingeniously disguised as mobile homes with retractable roofs, penetrated deep into Russian territory, reaching as far as eastern Siberia. While mainstream media might celebrate this as a tactical triumph, it's crucial to recognize the gravity of the situation. Ukraine's strikes on nuclear-capable bombers on Russian soil represent more than a minor border skirmish. They are direct attacks on assets critical to Russia's national security and nuclear deterrence. This situation was inherited by President Trump from the Biden-Harris administration, which had invested billions in Ukraine without enough oversight or a clear strategic goal. Their approach, which emphasized global engagement over domestic priorities like border security and economic recovery, has now left President Trump with the challenging task of managing escalation and steering towards peace. Complicating matters is Ukraine's decision to launch this operation without prior notification to Washington, calling into question the prudence of unconditional support for a government acting independently on such provocative matters. The Trump administration is justified in reassessing America's role in this conflict and advocating for diplomatic resolutions, particularly through the ongoing Istanbul peace talks. In retaliation, Russia executed its largest drone and missile strike of the war against Ukrainian cities, involving over 400 drones. This tit-for-tat escalation brings us perilously close to a broader conflict that could involve NATO and escalate to nuclear dimensions. The economic repercussions of this conflict are already being felt by ordinary Americans. Oil prices surged nearly 3% overnight due to fears of disruptions in Russian energy exports, leading to higher costs at the gas pump and for home heating expenses borne by Americans who had no say in our involvement in the Donbas conflict. The resignation of Ukraine's ground forces commander following a deadly Russian missile strike highlights the severe human costs of this conflict. Both sides are enduring tremendous losses, exacerbated by a foreign policy from the previous administration that seemed indifferent to the risks of nuclear escalation. President Trump recognizes that America cannot act as the world's policeman. Our priorities should be rebuilding our nation, securing our borders, and promoting peace through strength. The America First policy advocates for prioritizing our national interests and avoiding entanglements in costly foreign conflicts. As delegations convene in Istanbul, we must hope for rational diplomacy. Ukraine's provocative actions just hours before the peace talks raise concerns about their commitment to a diplomatic resolution. This type of brinkmanship is exactly what responsible leadership should strive to avoid. This is just the tip of the iceberg. Let's consider the recent events. Ukrainian drones have struck deep inside Russia, destroying numerous warplanes. In Washington, many claim this is a triumph for democracy, a victory for freedom, suggesting that American tax dollars are effectively at work. But we must ask ourselves, what does this really mean for you, your family, and the country you hold dear? This conflict is not ours. It never has been. Yet, due to years of imprudent intervention by the previous administration, led by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, known for their eagerness to fund foreign conflicts, we now find ourselves perilously close to a nuclear confrontation. This isn't an exaggeration, but a stark reality when a nuclear power is provoked on its own soil. Consider who truly benefits from these actions. Is it the American worker struggling with rising grocery prices? The small business owner battling inflation? Or is it the globalist elite profiting from perpetual conflict, supported by an establishment across both parties who remain unscathed by their decisions? Clearly, the beneficiaries are those who have consistently supported foreign wars at great cost to our economy and the lives of our service members. President Trump recognized this. He promised to prioritize America's interests over Ukraine, NATO, or the defense industry. Under his leadership, we saw a refusal to succumb to the pressures of the foreign policy establishment, a stand against the bipartisan call to arms. The mainstream media will not acknowledge this. They avoid discussing the risks of nuclear conflict over a territorial dispute in Eastern Europe, nor do they disclose the financial or personal toll on American citizens. Instead, they repeat worn-out slogans, obscuring the real dangers and futility of these conflicts. So we must ask, how many more military bases must be destroyed before we recognize that we are being led astray? How many more provocations will it take for us to declare that this is not our battle? If you're wondering why America feels fractured, why trust in our institutions is eroding, look no further than these foreign entanglements, another looming disaster, courtesy of those who never face the consequences. Ultimately, the choice is straightforward. Do we continue to heed the same unsuccessful voices, or do we demand a government that consistently puts America first? The true threat lies not abroad but at home, an elite willing to risk everything rather than admit their mistakes. Consider this and ask yourself, whose interests are they really serving? Be sure to comment below while dropping a like and subscribing. Until next time,